Welcome back to Valley Focus. I'm Valerie Moore, and my special guest this time from an organization new to us at Valley Focus, Lucinda Boyd, president and co-founder of the Streets Don't Love You Back organization, along with her husband, CEO and founder of the Streets Don't Love You Back, Rob Boyd. Good morning, Lucinda.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us. Well, we're here to give you some love today on Valley Focus.
All right, thank you.
So tell me a little bit about your organization, how you got started.
Well, back in 2009, my husband and I met, and I had a background of child abuse and teenage alcoholism, and he came from the streets where he, at the age of 10, got involved in gangs and selling drugs. So when we met, I had actually started editing his book. He was working on a book about his life because his life really led to a lot of tragic things because of the gangs and drug activity. And so I knew that through editing his book and learning more about him, through his story and my story, we could educate the youth and help make a difference and maybe change the world and let the youth know that they don't have to go through some of the things that we went through, and that there's a big need to go out and share and talk to someone and help them. So that's what we did.
Well, that's a wonderful platform. So what is the first step that you took in getting your organization out there?
Well, I edited his book, and his book was titled The Streets Don't Love You Back. So I thought, wow, let's just name the organization The Streets Don't Love You Back. And we both agreed, let's go out and just educate the kids.
That's a great name.
It is.
Because it's true, isn't it?
It is.
You can go out there and try to find self-fulfillment and all sort of things that aren't going to come back to help you or to make you a better person, but are going to harm you. That's hard for me to understand and think about. I came from a typical Midwest Wisconsin upbringing in the suburbs. And although things were tough, I'm older, so back in the 60s and 70s, the drug scene was starting, and a lot of things that weren't very helpful or healthful for kids. But you're talking about actual tragic circumstances that go on in the cities and about in areas that the average person may not know about. So address that a little bit. Address your story.
Well, my story is pretty typical as well. I come from a small town in southern Arizona. My family was very church-going, very close, but sexual abuse doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter, what religion you are, what race you are, what town you live in. So that kind of led me down the path of low self-esteem, the shame, the guilt, and turning to alcohol at the age of 13 and liking it because I could be somebody else when I was under the influence.
You could escape.
Exactly. So that led me down a lot of the wrong paths. I continued doing a lot of the right things in school and in activities and graduated and such. But even after high school, when I got out into the world, looking for love in all the wrong places and using alcohol to escape being who I thought, I was ashamed of because of the things I had gone through. So, I went through a lot, and it was really hard. So learning Rob's story, at 9 years old, he witnessed his grandfather kill his stepfather.
Oh, my.
And his real father was a prominent preacher, and, this is back in Detroit, and his real father wasn't in his life as well. So at 10 years old, he had his jacket stolen from a young man in the middle of winter, and he turned back to some of the guys in the streets to get help. And, they were obviously drug dealers. And so they took him to find the other kid who they knew in the neighborhood, and they got his jacket back, but they made Rob pistol whip this young kid. And he was more than happy to do it because he already had all this anger in him from his real father not being in his life. And then the other two men that he adored, his grandfather, and he killed his stepfather right in front of him. So that right there was the biggest traumatic tragedy in his life. And he never got help for that. But after that, he was in and out of the juvenile system. He became, at 10 years old, they got him into selling drugs. So he had the anger and he didn't care. He literally went to the street life and was very violent in those years that he did that. And he learned to be very cold and just kind of buried all that anger and that sadness that he had. Instead of learning how to deal with it, he shut it all down and just became very violent in the streets.
Well, we're speaking again to Lucinda Boyd, president and co-founder of the Streets Don't Love You Back organization, and her husband, Rob Boyd, CEO and founder of this wonderful, worthwhile organization. I want to get into the details in just a moment. But first, I want to just say that, the most terrible, sad stories don't always come out of the places you'd expect. So there are terrible, sad stories that can come out of church-going families, middle-class families, families on the outside that appear to be respectable and normal. But it is surprising the scars that people can carry with them. And many times, especially because they're in families that have to keep up this front of being respectable,
Right.
you hide that. So I think it's a double whammy when you come out of families that you have to keep things a secret, and then you go through life with shame and all the scars of that. So you did found the organization. Now tell me a little bit about the organization and who you work with for this work that you do.
Well, like I said, we started to educate the youth against gangs, drugs, violence, and abuse, and that incorporates a whole lot. So we started an online radio show where we would bring guests on who've gone through things like this and have able to overcome and get out. And 2 years ago, I wrote a Lifeskills Intervention Program because I said, we're out doing all these things. We're talking to schools, talking to kids, but we actually need a curriculum, a program that we can teach. We wanted to have a class. And so I sat down and wrote this book, and it's a Lifeskills Intervention Program. And currently we're in the courthouse in Maricopa, Arizona. We're in 2 different churches up here in Phoenix. We're in the Gila River Boys and Girls Club. We're accepted just as of January. Our program is a program that is now in the Arizona Department of Corrections. So we're not we're not only helping the youth, but we're also helping ex-offenders who are coming home, because a lot of them need these life skills to understand how to set goals and understand how to get back on their feet and understand how to get help and even to overcome some of those obstacles that we talk about.
Well, it's great to get to the kids, and that's what you need to do first and foremost. But the older people that haven't healed,
exactly,
you've got to reach them too one way or another.
Exactly.
So good for you. You're stretching and reaching out to all different ages there. Do you have a website?
We do. It's thestreetsdon'tloveyouback.com.
Now, I want to go through this slowly. The Streets, and there's no apostrophe or anything in that, just all one
Correct.
word. THESTREETSDON, and then what? Is there an apostrophe?
No apostrophe.
TLOVEYOUBACK. So The Streets Don't Love You Back, no apostrophe and don't.
Right.
Dot what?
.com.
.com. Okay. Do you have a Facebook?
We do have several Facebooks. You can reach my personal page at Lucinda Boyd. You can reach my husband at Rob Boyd. We have The Streets Don't Love You Back, which is an official site on Facebook. And then we have multiple other pages, The Streets Don't Love You Back TV, The Streets Don't Love You Back Life Skills Intervention Program, The Streets Don't Love You Back book. So, just Google or Facebook The Streets Don't Love You Back, and you'll get a bunch of pop-ups.
Well, I want to pass the microphone over to Rob Boyd now, your husband, and the actual CEO and founder of The Streets Don't Love You Back. Good morning, Rob. Thank you so much for coming in today to speak to us.
Hey, thank you for having us. It's an honor to be here.
Tell me a little more about your story. Where did you grow up?
Oh, I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan, and my family came from the Black Bottoms. Then we went around the city in the Warner County Projects, Van Dyke and Harper, a lot of different areas.
So you were moved around a lot, growing up in a tough city, a tough town, and you ended up turning to violence being in a gang. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me a little more about what your exact activities were then.
Oh, back then we sold drugs. We gang banged to the highest level. We did a lot of things, very violent, and we didn't care about anybody if you wasn't part of our team. We didn't care anything about you.
What changed you?
Well, when I was 24 years old, a lot of my homeboys were starting to get killed, and I in a circle. A lot of cats started going to prison, getting life sentences. And I remember when my homeboy Rick got killed in the hospital, I went to my mother's home, and I told her, I said, I got to leave, Mother. I say the closest place to me was Cincinnati, because me and my homeboys used to go there for the Cool Jazz Festival every year. So I'd already knew a couple of people there, but not really nobody. But I went and moved there, and I told her I'd be gone a couple of years. But I ended up getting caught up in Cincinnati and went to prison in Cincinnati. But when I got out, I ended up just staying there and started doing a lot of good work there, but still dipping and dabbing in the game a little bit.
Because you still had it inside you, the scars. You weren't healed.
Correct.
So you can change your behavior a little bit, but unless you inside have a change, it's hard to change for good, isn't it?
Yeah, most definitely. And when I have to rewind all the way up till I met my wife, until I met her, I still didn't care about certain things because the life that I come from, me and her come from two different backgrounds, two different atmospheres, and I came from the jungle. She didn't. And I learned how to listen to certain things she talked to me about because I was the boss. I didn't have to listen to anybody. What I said went. You know, it wasn't about no, let's have no meeting. What I said went, and that's what it was. But meeting her, she showed me that I could help people, and my story and her story could be a benefit. So it took me a minute for that to sink in, but it sinked in.
Well, and you learned about collaboration between the two of you and then collaborating with other people and helping these people that need your help. So it's been a life lesson.
Yeah, it's been life-changing for me because I have never loved anybody except my mother, as far as the women concerned. I've always been the type of guy, stayed to myself and stayed around my own team. I didn't allow myself to interact with people. So my wife is the only woman outside of my mother and sister that I've ever loved, period, because I've never cared about people.
So what are you doing in this organization now to help? Now, have you finished your book? You were writing a book?
Yes, my book came out in 2009. My wife edited my book, and we educate, like she said, against gangs, drugs, and violence and abuse. In 2010, I was honored in the Afro-American History Museum in my hometown, Detroit, where my book is in the rare book section, and it's in several libraries across the country, including here in Arizona. And it took me 5 years to build up in 150 prisons around the country before my wife created the intervention program. We've always been doing prison reform since the day we started the organization. And she get everything ready, and I takes it to the street because that's the way me and my wife put things together. She takes care of everything at the front office, then I takes it to the streets and to the prison. So that's how we work. And
you have a connection because you have experienced things that these people have. And really, that's the only time people are going to listen to you, is if you share an experience with them, I think. You know, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care and how much you've been through. So I think it's a great team here that you've gotten together with your wife, Lucinda. And is there any spiritual perspective to your program at all? Do you encourage people to get involved in spiritual issues?
Yes, ma'am. You know, I was raised up spiritual, my mother and really my whole family. But it's like when you get caught up in the game, you still know what to go back to. And one thing I want to emphasize to people is that from the time I was born till I was 9 years old, till the tragedy happened, I was already getting taught right from wrong. I had already been groomed and doing good things. I was into sports. I was into boxing and running track and playing basketball at the YMCA with my stepfather. So I was a young boy who was already groomed. But at the age of 9, when the murder happened, then that just took me off my square for a lot of years. But I always knew what to go back to, and that was the Creator, the God, who my mother and my stepfather taught me about as a kid from birth.
But you snapped when you had that murder happen in front of your eyes, and they call that PTSD. Now, it's not only among military experiences, but we're seeing that that's got lifelong effects for everyone who experiences a traumatic incident like that. So you had a form of that, obviously. You worked through it, and you're coming out of it thanks to the help of your wife here and the program. Now, tell me about the program. How can we get behind you?
Well, if you want to get involved with our program, the way we do it is people donate to us to get these booklets, and me and my wife purchase these booklets with our own money as well, along with donations, and we send them inside the prisons, and we teach them in the Maricopa Courthouse and the churches up here in Phoenix, and we send inside the other prisons as well before we got into the DOC here in Arizona. So that's how people can help.
Tell me a little more about this program and the books that you are putting into prisons and churches and many facilities here in Arizona.
Yeah, well, I kind of, in making the book, sat down one day and kind of put together what I thought were things that were important and the things that I came up with in the chapters. And it can be done in a 6-week program like we do when we teach it, or it can be done self-study like they do in the prisons. Everybody that does the course, though, at the end, there's a little test, and if they complete it and send it back to us, we send them a certificate of completion. So if you're in prison, it looks good. If you're out here, I'm just trying to change your life. We have a lot of people on probation and in different programs that come and take the test, and it kind of, helps them grow, and it looks good on their resume as well.
Well, the organization is called The Streets Don't Love You Back. What is your actual program there, your booklet called again?
The Streets Don't Love You Back Lifeskills Intervention Program.
Oh, it's intervention program.
Yeah, Lifeskills Intervention.
So this is a nice little beautifully illustrated book that you've gotten together. Looks like a great big workbook, like a science workbook.
Yeah, there's worksheets in there as well. We talk about substance abuse dependency and making decisions, anger management and solving conflicts, attitudes, behaviors, problem solving, and self-improvement. We talk about and help them learn how to set goals and identify their strengths and skills and weaknesses. And then we kind of bring it all together, and we have the students take turns reading. We stop, we talk about it. There's a lot of sharing of testimony. Sometimes we'll bring in guest speakers, friends of ours that we know that have gone through things and are overcomers. So we share a lot of testimony. The students share unbelievable problems that sometimes these young kids just shouldn't be going through, as we know, because we went through them. But we share a lot, and we learn a lot together through the classes. And I think that's the biggest part of the healing process, is that, you know, when you're able to heal and share something that's been a secret for many, many years, and you're able to get that out and share it with somebody, that's a healing. And a lot of these students are really healing through many things that maybe they didn't even realize.
And they say that sharing a burden means you only have half a burden now, but
Exactly.
you shared that and you know someone else cares and can identify and can sympathize. I like the statement in your book that I was looking through. Stop your stinking thinking, your negative attitudes and things like that. Just the way
Exactly.
you see yourself. And I like that you're talking about positive self-esteem and many other things in there, that why can't you achieve the things that you think you don't deserve? And, you know,
Right.
it's just getting your
Exactly.
attitude straight again, because you've been told the wrong things. You've been
Exactly.
programmed wrong.
Exactly.
Now, if our listeners would like to get a hold of one of these booklets, is that possible? Can they buy one from you online, or does it have to be a group effort, or how does this work?
They can buy it online off of our website at thestreetsdon'tloveyouback.com. But if they are enrolled in our program, it is free.
And if they want to donate, they can do so right online.
They can do so. We also have a donation link on our website. And, you know, this program is free for all of the classes and the prisons that we have. So, you know, we definitely accept donations and sponsors and different people that want to help us get this program out there.
Well, I thank you so much. I applaud both of you for taking your unfortunate history and turning it into good for other people. That's the best thing you can do with a sad experience and a tragic past. And so thank you both for doing that. Again, it's Lucinda Boyd, president and co-founder of The Streets Don't Love You Back, along with her husband, Rob Boyd, CEO and co-founder. They've got this program going that is a rehabilitation and intervention program for kids and even adults that have had these tragic circumstances happen or are at risk. And so it's a great thing to get behind. Our Valley-focused listeners have big hearts, and I'm hoping they're going to get on there and support you. Maybe recommend someone to your program if they're thinking of someone who needs it right now, or find out all the details again. Now, let me give that website carefully. It is The Streets Don't Love You Back, and there is no apostrophe in don't, so just thestreetsdon'tloveyouback.com. You can also find it on Facebook. You can certainly check that out and get in touch with them to make a donation or find out more, or get someone you loved involved in this program. Thank you so much for coming to us
Thank you for having
today.
us.
Come
Been a
back
pleasure.
again. Tell us an update, and God bless and best
Awesome.
wishes.
You can love the streets, but the streets don't love you back. You can love the streets, but the streets don't love you back. You can love the streets, but the streets don't love you back. You can love the streets, but the streets don't love you back. You can love the streets, but the streets don't love you back. A lot of homies dead and gone, thought the streets would love them back. I got homies in the pen I might never see again, cause they live by code. Always keep your mouth closed. In the streets they be wise.